Hey everyone, welcome to Talks of Thailand. My name is Jon. Today's story is about a man who felt like he had to be in Thailand at all costs. Things went wrong for a very long time, and when they finally started to come good, that's when he found out the truth about who he was really with. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, give the video a like, and let's get in to today's story. My first time in Thailand, I experienced lots of things and witnessed so many things that really put me off the country in so many ways. Yet there were a few things about Thailand that I was really attracted to, and it was those few things that made me overlook everything else that went on in the country. For a start off, I was involved in a minor jet ski altercation, which turned out to cost me a lot of money. This was before it was widely known as being a big scam that caught many foreigners out. I was also overcharged in a number of bars. I had bill padding, I had drinks added to my bar tab, I was subject to a tuk-tuk ride that saw me being taken to a gem store. I suppose falling for all the typical scams that many people fell for, yet at the time you have to remember there wasn't all that information out there about how to avoid those scams. All these things that are happening to me and making me experience Thailand in the way that I didn't expect to experience it kind of made the country come off in a very bad light. On the other hand, I was attracted to a few very key things that overlooked everything else and made me overlook everything else to the point where things shouldn't matter anymore, because the few minor things that are so good matter more than anything else. For a start off, the availability of extremely beautiful girls. Secondly, the extremely affordable pricing. Thirdly, the lack of rules and regulations when it came to just basic living. Those three things made me overlook every single other thing that I didn't like about Thailand, when perhaps I gave them way too much weight, more weight than I should have given them, and I guess that's why I found myself committing to Thailand as my forever holiday destination. I was never thinking about going anywhere else, never considering anywhere else, just coming to the point where Thailand would be my forever holiday place, not necessarily thinking about somewhere to live at the time. I was, after all, only 48 years old when I went to Thailand for the first time in 2008. I still had lots of things to achieve at home. I'd come out of a marriage which broke down. Luckily, we had no kids, so there was no child support payments for me, but we were very close to having them. It just didn't happen though, and I'm very glad it didn't, because if I did have kids, then I would have been trapped and stuck for years longer, and who knows, I might have died before I had the chance to do anything I wanted to do. I found, after that Thailand holiday, when I spent most of my time in Bangkok and a little bit of time in Pattaya too, two of the cities that really shone out to me as being beacons of light in an otherwise dark world. I was already planning my next trip. When I was leaving the first trip, I'd only been there for 2 weeks, I'd met a few girls, but nothing that made me stop in my tracks and think I needed to change the course of my life because of it. I did feel like when I was being flown out of Thailand though, I felt kind of an unease come over me, because there was nothing that would allow me to continue experiencing Thailand like I was before. I felt like I got off lightly, escaping with only losing out of bits and pieces of money when I was scammed by the jet ski and the gem store and all the other stuff that went along with that. When I was thinking about it at the time, I didn't think of those things as huge negatives or things that I should look at and point at as being something to stop me from going back. I just thought they were little quirks about Thailand and how Thailand worked, and something to overlook for the greater good, and for the benefit of what life in Thailand could be like when you go next time. For whatever reason, as the months are passing, about 6 months after I was back, I booked my next trip for 2009. I found myself thinking about Thailand more as the time went by. I'd be in work, and I'd be watching the clock waiting until home time, and I'd be thinking about Thailand. Little things would dart into my mind about the times that I had, and that would be what would get me through the day until I arrived back home. Then Thailand would drop out of mind, and I wouldn't think about it until I was in a situation or a circumstance where the thought of Thailand made me escape the situation that I was currently in, and the then and now allowed me to continue working and allowed me to get through bad situations in life, because I was able to think about Thailand in order to be able to do that. I was really looking forward to my second trip. Really looking forward to seeing what a few other places in Thailand were like. I was going to be going up north to Chiang Mai, and I was going to be going down to Phuket. I was not going to Pattaya, probably a couple of days in Bangkok too, and I'd already done lots of research about where to go, because I wanted to see more of the country. Again, the furthest thing from my mind was living in Thailand, or moving there, or doing anything like that. It just go and enjoy myself and take your time and get settled into a great holiday. When I landed in Bangkok, I went straight down to Phuket. Didn't bother staying for a night in Bangkok. I wanted to take in the island life and really get to know that part of the country. Immediately, I hated Phuket. It felt like it was too touristy. I mean, everywhere was very touristy, especially Pattaya that I'd been to before, but I felt like the tourist scene was a bit less single guy looking for his escape and more of a family destination, and Thailand and family destination, as we know the time has gone by, has become a lot more of a thing. Back then, though, those words just didn't seem to make sense. They didn't seem to go together. Thailand wasn't for family destinations. Thailand wasn't that at all. Thailand was for good, clean fun. Thailand wasn't for anything other than having a good time as a single guy. That's what I thought Thailand was designed for and made for, but I suppose that was wrong. It was for people who wanted a country in a lesser state of development that seemed to have everything that you wanted, that was cheap, affordable, and available to people, where you could step out of the realms of what the law was in the way in your own country. Not to such extremes, but to the point where you're able to just exist and live and enjoy yourself without worrying about the constraints of what life in a normal society is like. That was what Thailand meant, and in Phuket, it felt like it was already moving away from that a bit, and I didn't enjoy it. I went up to Bangkok and spent a few days there, and again, really enjoying myself. And it was in Bangkok that I remember meeting a girl who gave me all these goosebump feelings that made me not really understand exactly why I was feeling these things. My previous holiday, I'd met a few girls, and that was fun and enjoyable, but this was a bit different. It was more, I can't believe how I'm feeling because of this girl. It was really interesting and be able to pull myself out of it because I wasn't. And I could click my fingers and say to myself, don't do anything stupid, but I didn't do that. At this point, I'd heard lots of stories about guys who had lost everything they had to a Thai girl, and I didn't want to be another statistic, although I could see myself easily falling for a girl to the point where nothing else mattered. Then you start doing things that perhaps you shouldn't be doing, things that are not in your best interest, and I didn't want to do that. I wasn't going to do that as of yet, and I managed to somehow control myself, even though it was very, very hard when I met her. Then I went up to Chiang Mai, which was a place I was interested to go because I had read lots about the atmosphere up there, how it was quite different to Bangkok. It was the old Lana capital. The scenery was great. They had the mountains. And as someone who had always ridden bikes in my life, motorcycles that is, I was going to be doing one of the motorcycle tours, a famous one called the Mae Hong Son Loop. I got to Chiang Mai and really felt an affinity for the place. It felt like Thailand, but a different sort of Thailand. It felt a bit oldie-worldy, yet it was coming up in terms of tourists. It was still busy, and it was still ongoing in a very popular way. I remember going out on the bike on the Mae Hong Son Loop. I started doing that, and I went in the anti-clockwise direction. By the time I arrived in Mae Sariang and spent a night there, I was already feeling a bit bored. There was no main tourist kind of stuff there. There were no girls to meet. There were no bars to go in. I decided I would actually go back to Chiang Mai because although the Mae Hong Son Loop was fun, I would have expected and I would have wanted to have stopped off at the different places on the way and had normal bars available to me where you can go in and chat to the girls and have some drinks, but that wasn't available. It was when I got back to Chiang Mai, though, that I was speaking to a guy who had done the Mae Hong Son Loop himself, and he was talking about how he'd met a girl and taken her on the loop with him and had a fantastic time, and I thought perhaps I would do something like that. I walked into the bars that evening. Unfortunately, I didn't meet anyone, but after the second night of not meeting someone, not to go on the loop with, I decided to go back to Bangkok for the rest of my holiday, and I had about a week or so left. That was when I would say that my life changed, when I was back in Bangkok, because I was just out one evening, not in any of the girly bars or the go-go bars or the beer bars, just a normal style bar where they served Western food. It was very pub-like as opposed to a bar, and they didn't have girls that worked there in that sense. They had girls that worked there as waitresses, that was it, but it was right at the end of Sukhumvit Soi 8, the closest to Sukhumvit Road. I would say about 100 metres up on the left, a little place there, or actually quite a big place in fact. They had pub-style things, draft beer, and girls as waitresses, who were just waitresses. I think when I walked into that place and took a seat in one of those stools or like a booth place, it was a booth, that was it. I took a seat in the booth, then ordered a beer and the menu, and the girl brought me the menu, and I'm looking at her thinking, wow, she's beautiful. I didn't know anything about her, and it was clear that she wasn't working like that. Very clear. She wasn't working like that. I think there was something about that made me feel like I wanted to pursue her in a way that I wouldn't have done if she did work like that. Because if she did, then it would have been different. It would have been nothing to pursue, because it would have just been available to you if you wanted it, and you could have had it if you wanted, and that would have been it. This was really different, though. This wasn't like that. She was somebody that you could pursue, and I made it my mission to pursue her for the rest of my holiday. Not in any kind of creepy way, but in a way where I would be interested in getting to know her and maybe learning about her and spending some time with her, maybe making her my girlfriend. That's what I was already thinking when I met her for the first time. I kept ordering drinks, just ordering small beers, and she's bringing them over, and before long I am a few beers in and another girl brings it over, and I gesticulating a bit. Where's she gone? She was at the end of her shift, and that was, put to bed, that idea. But I thought about her for the rest of the day, in the evening though, and through the night, and it was then when I thought I was kind of stuck up a bit of conversation with her, because I went back the following day and I started asking her things such as what's your name and how old are you? The typical things you would say to anyone, and it wasn't like she was very interested or anything like that, but she was trying to be very forthcoming, or not, that was the case too. Apart from her work, she didn't really want to let up. I kept trying and trying though the second day I was there, and asked her if she wanted a drink, and she said no, she's working and she can't do that. I asked her when her shift finished, and she told me, and I said to her, I'd really like to take you out if you'd be interested, I'd happily do that, and she said no, I don't work like that. I told her I know, I'm not interested in that type of thing, I want to talk to you because you don't work like that. She thought about it for a second, just as about to say no, and I said, well, you can choose where to go, and it's your choice, and if you want me to leave at any time, I will. Perhaps she was umming and ahhing the fact that, okay, she doesn't work like that, perhaps she could get out of this something if she did it. Perhaps she was also thinking that because back then, remember 2009, she was being paid basically nothing or next to nothing a month. So she ultimately agreed to go with me, and we left Sukhumvit altogether. I asked her where she was taking me. I thought it was like a plot or a ruse in order to maybe empty me of all my money. Maybe she had a boyfriend who she'd contacted, and they were going to extract money from me. Although those were ridiculous thoughts to have, they were only a flash though that lasted a second. By the time we arrived in Odd Nut, all the way at the other end of the BTS line, I'd never been that far on the BTS before. It felt like we'd entered a different city entirely. We were in a different world, if you will. You didn't have as many high-rises, you didn't have the bars there, you didn't have the foreign-facing restaurants. You had a big Tesco Lotus, still called a Tesco Lotus then, right at the entrance to the BTS station on one side of the road, and on the other side you had a nondescript kind of market, and I don't remember anything about it, because we didn't go in. She walked with me in the direction of where Big C is, up in the road to the left, and I can picture walking there now, and before long we walked past Big C, and then up this little soy there's a little restaurant there, and she said this is where she likes to go when she lives close by. We ordered some food, a few drinks, and it was just cheap, dirt cheap. I thought it was cheap when I was in Sukhumvit in the tourist areas, but this was cheap on a whole different level, and it was a great time that I had with her. We come to the end of the night, and I'm desperately thinking how can I ask her to go back to the hotel with me, knowing that perhaps I shouldn't. And unfortunately nothing happened, but it was okay, and I asked if she'd like to go out the following night. She said she would, after her shift. I told her I'd go and see her in the pub, or bar, whatever you want to call it, and the next day I would do that, and we can take things from there. At this point, I only had 3 days of my holiday left, and I felt like it was because of that I needed to rush the situation I was in with her. I needed to take things further, quicker. I needed to get to a point where I could leave, and we could, if we wanted to continue, be able to continue in a way where I wouldn't be missing out on learning about her more and being with her more before I had to leave, or the chance to see her again. Because I was feeling things for her like that, it mattered to me, feeling things that I hadn't felt ever since I got divorced from my ex, and I would say it was similar feelings that I had when I met her for the first time. Bubbly and warm feelings and fuzzy feelings when you're not with her, worrying that something's happening and she might be doing something that you wouldn't want her to do, and it was those feelings and the fact I was leaving soon that made me decide, when I met up with her the following day, that I wanted to keep in touch with her. When I left and I told her I was leaving soon, I told her how I felt about her. I said it was only early days, but I have been really interested in her, and I'd love to be able to keep in touch after I left. I'd love to be able to build a long-distance relationship, and I'll come back to Thailand again soon, and we can pursue where we left off and see how things go. She did seem to be open to that. I told her, and I suppose I shouldn't have opened with this. I opened with the fact that I'd happily leave you with some money when I go, just so you can have a breather a bit and have a bit of an easier time, because she didn't make a lot of money. And she was very thankful for that. And it was that evening when things moved to a different level, and it wasn't like a bar girl situation whatsoever. It was completely different to that. It was a normal situation. There was no, and I don't know, it just felt real in a way that the times I'd been with the bar girls just didn't. I suppose that was what made me have even stronger feelings for her, and feelings of a lot more attraction, and it was one of those situations where everything just felt great and I wanted it to continue. I managed to wing her off a couple of days of work because I was leaving, and because I was leaving soon, I suppose that's why I felt like each day with her had to be like it counted for everything. We had to learn a lot about each other in a short space of time, and in terms of where she was from, her upbringing and things like that, it was pretty similar to that of a bar girl. She's working, she's helping her family, and I asked, why don't you work in a bar? She said no, that's just not for her, she can't do it, and I really respected and admired her for that. It wasn't like she was open to meeting a foreigner though, because she was with me. I'm really attracted to her though, and she seemed attracted to me, and I was quite a good-looking guy, I thought, even though I was approaching 50. And the last day, I withdrew about 20,000 baht and gave that to her, and she was very grateful, and we promised to keep in touch and see how things went from there. When I was leaving Thailand, if I think about it, I'd fallen into the trap that so many guys fell for. Come on holiday, fallen in love, and it was a situation where nothing else mattered, and she was the only thing that did matter. Thailand was the only thing that mattered too, even though things had happened and you'd been scammed again a few times, and you'd been on a river cruise and the guy had overcharged you, and he'd stopped next to someone selling tourist tat on a little boat in the street, forcing you to buy it when you didn't want to. Bad things had happened, but good things had happened too, because I'd met someone, and that was when Thailand becomes an addiction, I suppose, like many people have. Although I wasn't addicted to Thailand, and I didn't feel like I needed to go back soon, when I'm speaking to her, as the days are passing, and they're turning into weeks and months, and I'm at work and she's at work, probably, maybe even meeting other guys, and I'm really heartbroken at that thought. She never said she did. She always said that she was just interested in me, and I was just interested in her. I suppose that was why, after I'd been back for about 4 or 5 months, I decided to go back to Thailand again, this time only for a week, because I couldn't get any more time off work. I needed to see her again. I wanted to rekindle where we left off and get to a point where we could turn this into something even more real. One of the problems was, as time was going by, coming to a conclusion as to how to make it real. How are we going to become an item that can be together and live together and build a life with each other? How can we do that? It's like we've come from different places, and the way things work is it's not set up for people like us to be together. And I really do feel for people in relationships like that, because it's between someone from the West and your girlfriend or wife from Thailand, because you're from different worlds. The person from the West can't just work in Thailand and sustain themselves there unless they do a very specific thing, such as IT work or high-end IT work or start their own business. People from Thailand can't just go and live in the West very easily unless you jump through all the hoops of a visa and things such as that. So it's like you're not meant to be together. But we were meant to be together. When I got back for a week, she was taking time off work, and she said she'd been taking more time off because I was sending her money, and she was spending more time with her family, doing a bit of work every now and then, and she was grateful for me, and she seemed to be happy to see me. If anything, she seemed happier to see me than I was to see her, and that really is kind of saying something, and made me feel good in a way, but bad knowing I had to leave soon, and there was no way for us to just solidify what we had and build this connection into something more real. We only spent a night in Bangkok, and then we went to Koh Samui. Wanted to take her to a nice place and take her out of Bangkok and get to know her even more and see where we could take things and where we could build things and what we could become. It was during that week where I was starting to have ideas of how things would work between us. The first thought was to get her a visa to go and live at home with me, but the more I'm thinking about that and the expense that would entail, and that would be taking me further away from what I really wanted, which was at this point to live in Thailand. If I take her there, that's going to cost a lot of money, and that could be a year's work just to be able to get her there, and that just didn't seem to make up or add up in a way that made any sense. When we were in Koh Samui, though, I went together with her on every night, of course, to go out to eat food. Nice food, usually, and it was fun and a really great experience. A couple of the places where we went noticed that there was a guy in there, and the guy was the owner, and he had his Thai staff working for him. Sometimes he was behind the bar, sometimes he was just sat there. I met 3 guys, and I started talking to one of them after we'd had a great Italian meal. "Do you live here?" I asked, and he said yes. It was clear that he was the boss, and it was his business. I asked him how long he'd been doing it, and he said 12 years, and I thought that was great. "I've got my family here," he said too, and I just looked at him like he'd won in life, like he'd answered all the problems that I was facing, and he'd come to a conclusion and had been living the life where he wanted to live it, and building the life he wanted to build. And I cheekily asked him how have you done this, and how did you make it work? I probably had a couple of drinks at this time, but I said to him, "How much does it cost to set up something like this?" He started talking about how you need a certain amount of capital to start the business, how it has to be over a certain amount before you can get a work permit, and you need a certain amount of Thai staff. When he spelled everything out and told me exactly how things worked, all of a sudden, I feel like this is the answer that I've been waiting for. 2 million baht registered capital. Okay, I had more than 2 million baht. 4 Thai staff needing a certain salary, which at the time was very low. Okay, I've got the ability to do that. He said it took a few years for him to become profitable. Okay, I could wait a few years to become profitable, and all of a sudden this is the solution. Invest in a small business in Thailand together with my girlfriend, and if this works, I can live in Thailand happily ever after, and I can be with her, and I can build a proper life with her instead of slaving away at home, missing her and wishing I was with her. I hadn't talked about this with her yet. These were just brief, vague ideas that I was having as the weeks were coming to an end. I didn't even talk about it when I was leaving. Although at this point, I felt like she was the one I would be with forever, and I felt that she felt the same way about me. It was when I was home, though, that I started really to think hard about the need to go and open a business in Thailand, because that was the solution. Knowing that I couldn't get a job apart from teaching, and I wasn't in IT, so I couldn't do that. Knowing I couldn't do that, this was the only option, and it was an option that had thrust itself upon me in a way that if I didn't do it, I'd be missing out, and I wouldn't be able to have what I needed. I needed to be in Thailand, and I needed to be with her. I started to work out my finances and coming to a conclusion as to what I had available to me and what I would need in order to set things up and have the buffer that I needed. At that point, after I got divorced, we sold the house, which was gut-wrenching because I was living in a rented place at this point, and I had in my bank about 80 grand, which was around 4 million baht. Not enough to retire by any stretch of the imagination at all, just 80 grand nonetheless. I had a couple of old cars, which weren't worth a lot, but it was one of my hobbies to do them up and sell them on, and never really made any money. It was just something I enjoyed doing. I stopped doing that entirely for a long time, ever since, I suppose, my Thailand trip, when Thailand became something that was more important to me than the hobbies that I had at home. But I had those 2 old cars, probably worth another 5 grand for both of them, so that would take me up to 85. And if I really got my head in the game and spent 3 months doing as hard work as I could, getting rid of everything I could probably end up with 90 grand total. I didn't tell her about all of the ideas I was having, but we're speaking together, I'm sending her money and she's happy. Everything's fun, everything's great. It got to the point, after about a month of being there, I told her I'd been thinking for a long time, and I decided I wanted to go to Thailand. I told her I wanted to start a business, and I wanted to do it with her. I knew we would need a certain amount of Thai staff to make this a reality, and she couldn't be one of them if she was part of the business, because she would need to be the Thai shareholder that owned most of the business, because as a foreigner, you can't own the whole thing. Again, these are just solutions that are available and in front of us. It just seemed like it was the right thing to do. As the time's going by, until I'm going to be going to Thailand, I'd already found a way to get the business visa from the embassy at home that should be hopefully extended as time goes by. I wasn't thinking about marriage yet or anything like that, and she's coming up with ideas as to what we could do. I was really drawn to the idea of having a place like that place in Koh Samui, or maybe in Bangkok, and I didn't know anything about anything to do with it, or renting anywhere or doing anything. I knew it would take a while to get set up, and that was fair enough. But if we had a little bit of a restaurant because of that guy I met who had one and he just seemed to be doing it great. Also, I was a brilliant cook. I could train up a chef to cook food the right way, and it could be a great business. I'd seen so many foreigners doing so many restaurants in Koh Samui especially that I thought I could take their success and maybe have my own success in Bangkok, and it really appealed to me as one of the best solutions to allow me to live in Thailand. Because at the end of the day, that was what it was for. This wasn't necessarily for the fact that I desperately wanted to start a business. It was always a dream of mine to start a business, but it wasn't necessarily the most important thing. It was I wanted to be in Thailand. That's why I was doing this. I'd never had an intention or do anything like that or was that way inclined, but it was something that would allow me to build in Thailand as opposed to not being in Thailand, and that's why I did it. I guess that's why so many guys go and start businesses when they're not necessarily business people or not entrepreneurs or never had any experience doing something like that. Because if you've never started and run a business in your own country, you've never done it before, then how do you think you're able to do it in Thailand? That's what you're meant to do though, so therefore it has to be that because you can't do anything else. You can't just go and get a normal job. If I could have gone and got a normal job like the job that I had at home, even if it was for half the salary, I'd have still had a brilliant life, but you just couldn't do that, and that was a huge problem. We're talking about the little ideas we have. She's coming up with ideas, and she always said she's worked in a restaurant, and I suppose it was a restaurant, but it was a bar restaurant situation, Western style place where she worked. So she had the experience there, And it's a fun thing to talk about as the days are coming down and progressing to the point where I booked the ticket. And by the time I arrived back in Thailand, I'd already set up myself with the business visa, and I needed that extended. It was a case, though, of forming a limited company, getting the shareholders, getting the Thai staff, getting an office to start with where we can register the thing, and it all really seemed to be coming together so well. I probably spent about 100,000 baht getting the company formed, and again, it wasn't like we knew exactly what we were doing. We just said hospitality as a business, or a restaurant hospitality, because you have to pick what the business is going to be when you're settling it up, and we sorted that out. To start with, we found a few of her Thai friends to become the Thai staff, because he needed the Thai staff before I could get the work permit, which seemed to be the wrong way round. The Thai staff needed to come on before you could get the work permit, but how are you meant to build a business if you can't get the work permit? Surely you should get the work permit first, and you should have 3 months to be able to get things in order. Then you get the Thai staff, but I believe it's the wrong way round. So, I was paying 4 Thai staff 8,000 baht a month each at that point, which wasn't a fortune, but it was still money that needed to be very cautiously used because we had to actually find something to do. When we had those staff on board a couple of months or so later, I already had the work permit, and I was able to, through the assistance of an agent, extend the business visa. And I felt like now I'd got my visa sorted out for a year, now I've got my work permit sorted out, now we've got the Thai staff. Now it's a question of actually looking quickly, finding a business, because it was costing money as an ongoing thing. I was paying tax on a salary that I wasn't even being paid yet, because you had to pay tax in order to get the salary, in order to get the work permit. So it's sort of, again, how are you meant to be a startup? How are you meant to do that? It's just how Thailand works, though, and it's very rigid and regimented. Very easy to do it if you do it that way, but you just have to accept paying money up front for things that you don't want to pay money up front for, just because you have to. If you don't, then you can't even get the permits. I felt great, though, and I found the whole thing was great. I felt this huge connection to the country of Thailand, and every time you're running into a guy who's there as a tourist, you feel like you're one step above him. You're one notch above him in the tourist hierarchy, in the foreigner hierarchy, because you're able to live there. We spent an amount of time, though, while this was going on, looking around Bangkok for a perfect place to have what we wanted. I wanted an Italian restaurant, just like that one I saw on Koh Samui, and it became quite apparent quite quickly that the rent that needed to be paid for the sort of place that would be what we wanted was way too expensive. At least, it would have taken too big of an investment, and it got quickly put off by the thought of doing that. It wasn't like something that could have sustained itself for a long time without working straight away, and it quickly became clear that that wasn't the best idea. At this point, since I'd got back, she'd quit her job, and she was being paid a salary out of the company too. She was actually getting 15,000 a month as the director, and that was coming out of me as well, and I suppose I'm spending about 60,000 baht a month I was spending to maintain the company, and that was over the first 3 months. So yes, it was costing money. After that, we left Bangkok believing that we might have more success in Pattaya because it was very touristy, it was also cheaper, and perhaps we could get set up there better, and she'd never been to Pattaya before, and that appealed to me because she didn't have the Pattaya world rubbed off on her that made her any different. And I did like Pattaya, although I'd only been one time before. My first time there was, well, one of an experience that I still behold today, but I was looking forward to going and establishing something and seeing what it was going to be like there. When we arrived in Pattaya, we quickly felt that this was going to be the best place to get set up. We felt like we were meant to be there. It was like we hadn't met there, and we both found this place together as a place to live. And it was something like that was drawing us there. And before long, by looking around at different places, there was a great little place to rent in Jom Tiem, just off the beach road, and it was an open-air style place. It was already a restaurant, and it just had a sign outside. I called up about it, and the first thing that shocked me, he said it's for sale. And I thought he meant the building too. But he said no, just a business. And what business? It's not being run at the moment. And that was when you learn about what I would say ridiculous nature of buying a business, that you're not actually buying anything apart from the goodwill. Yet is there any goodwill at all? This is me thinking about it, looking back and thinking, why would I think this was a good idea? It was only 1 million baht though. Okay, a lot of money, a big chunk of money. And I've got it, so if I could pay it, then it could be okay. If we buy this, and bear in mind, we have got Thai staff that we're paying a salary for, the idea was to get rid of those staff and find new staff for the place, or so I could maintain the work permit. We'd have to change stuff over so I could change the address of the company to Pattaya and add the address or whatever it is we needed to do. It was going to be a chore, but just something you had to do. We kept looking around though, and kept coming back to this place as being something that could be really good to operate. And we thought we could get stuck in, and about 2 months after we'd arrived in Pattaya, we decided to go for it. We paid the 1 million baht and added it onto our company so I could work from there, And basically, we had to keep the address in Bangkok, which was a service address that we'd paid for to maintain the head office, and we added this office on as an extra office, so it was costing money. We found some staff and switched everything over in about a month after actually handing over the money we were open. At this point, out of everything I'd arrived with, probably I had about half the money left. The sense of euphoria, though, that we've actually got set up, we've actually got our own place, we've made it nice, we'd kitted it out well, and I'd trained up a chef how to cook food the way I wanted it to be cooked, and although the rent wasn't exorbitant like it was in Bangkok, it was still expensive. If I had to work out exactly how much I was spending on a monthly basis once we were set up, it was probably, well, let me add it up. 15,000 baht for my girlfriend, who had to be honest, I'd already proposed to, and we would be due to getting married. 15,000 for her, 12,000 for the chef, 10,000 for the lady that didn't really run the place, but she was taking orders and making sure everything was great, and another 8,000 baht each for 2 other staff who served the tables and washed the dishes and just did that kind of thing. The rent was 40,000, and we had the utilities on top, which came to about 8,000. And then we had the ingredient cost, as I would personally always use to class that as a separate thing. All in, around 100,000 baht a month was what we'd been spending on a monthly basis, and that meant we needed to earn about 3,400 baht a day in profit to cover that, which didn't seem like it was too much money in order to actually make us a profit. I can remember opening, and we had the grand opening. We'd already put flyers around and let people know we were opening, and it was a reasonable day. Although it wasn't anywhere near as busy as we'd hoped, the fact that people were coming in and we were getting foot traffic and people were trying it out and saying it was good, it really felt like we'd got it off to a good start. The first month we were open, though, we lost about 100,000 baht, which was alarming, but not too concerning because I was always aware when it came to businesses that things just didn't work straight away. You had to take your time, you had to build a reputation, you had to learn your market and learn the business and learn how to optimize it. And it wasn't overly alarming, but it was still a bit alarming, 100,000 baht lost. Second month we lost less, about 60,000 baht, and I actually took that as a good sign. We're moving in the right direction, we're getting more people in. We had streamlined things more. The third month, though, we lost 70,000, and that was alarming, a really, really alarming thing for me. We were due to be getting married the month after, and we put that off and delayed it for a bit, because I'm kind of working out the situation. How can I reduce costs? That's, what you start realizing that you're perhaps bitten off more than you could chew. The rent, when you're finding out what other people were paying, we were paying way too much. I shouldn't have been giving money for my girlfriend until we made a profit, and it was difficult because I didn't want to give it up straight away. The next month, we had a great month though. We made some profit. We made about 50,000 baht profit, and it was the peak of high season, and the peak of high season, which should have been a warning that this is just a lucky month. This is a high season month, and it's not going to be good like that all the time. When that happened though, that was when we got married, and we had a celebrationist to say we're moving in the right direction now, and I really thought we were. I was in love with her, she appeared in love with me, and we weren't meant to be together. We were made for each other, we were happy with each other, and we just had been with each other in a way that we were so happy now. We had this business, and we'd already made a profit. The next month, because we were getting married and we spent a few days away in Koh Samui, being with each other because of getting married, the restaurant was running itself. That month made a profit too. And the month after the peak of high season, it made about 30,000 baht. Again, thinking it's great, we are moving in the right direction here, and I felt like I'd made it in life, and this was feeling I was having, which were not really warranted or not justified, because if I thought about it, it was mainly just blind luck that high season had come around at that time. It did give us time that we're growing the business though, and the feeling that we were, the feeling that this is going to continue to be great. The problem from there was the next month we lost money. Not a lot, not too much to be a huge concern, just either way it was a loss. Then lost again, and again, and again, and a couple of months later, I was down to about 1 million baht, and I think when it dipped under 1 million baht, when I'd arrived with 4, I understanding more about high season and how that works, and I'm understanding the best time to be open and understanding that, we need to renegotiate the rent, and that was something I tried to do, but he wouldn't have it. The landlord simply wouldn't have it. Then I'm trying to think about how to cut costs, and nothing is coming to mind, and we lose money again, and I'm down to 930,000, I think it was around then. Then we lose more money, and I'm down to 870. And when the next month's going through, and my wife and I, who I believe we're really in love, and we're made for each other and happy with each other, looking around at the situation and thinking, if we do this much longer, we'll get to high season again. We might have a few good months, and after that, it's going to crash again. We hadn't been up to see her family yet. We hadn't been and done anything like that. And we hadn't seen that side of it, because we just didn't have the time. We did decide, though, let's really try and push it for another month and let's go up there. And we need to go and pay my respects to the family because we were married now. I needed to sort that out. And we went up there and we left the restaurant in the capable hands of the people we had running it. And they were reasonably capable, we thought. It was when we were up in her hometown of Buriram where that were getting calls from the restaurant. Things are going okay, but it's not as good as it should be. Then her family start putting pressure on me that we need to get married in the village, and luckily they were quite modern in certain ways because they didn't want me to give them any money apart from pay for the wedding, so I agreed to pay 50,000 for that, which was going to take place in a few weeks. We arrived back in Pattaya, back to the restaurant after arranging this wedding. Again, it was an exciting time. I was happy. I thought things were going to pick up and get better, but also I was a concern because we had lost money again, and now I'm down to I think it was about 800,000 baht. When I said to my wife, we need to do something soon, if we lose money, it's going to all go wrong, I don't have enough money to continue doing this. That was when she said, how about we go and stay with my family for a bit, and we can close the business down. You can get a different visa, and if we get rid of it quickly, we can try to sell it. We sell it as a going concern, because obviously we bought it. Obviously people buy businesses all the time, so if we sell it, try and recoup a bit of money, let's go and spend some time with the family, and take a different approach to life, and start living a more basic life out in the sticks, and build something up that way. And then, once we've saved some money, go and reinvest back in Pattaya and try again, or Bangkok, or wherever. I started thinking that was a good idea, because we lost a bit more money, got down to 750,000, and that was when we put the business up for sale, hoping that someone would come along and buy it. The thing was, they actually did. Only 2 weeks after we put that business for sale, we sold it for 1 million baht, and I couldn't believe it. A guy from Germany had come, he saw it and he wanted it, and he bought it together with his wife, and he had a lot of money, I don't know what it was. So we actually sold it though, and that was the luckiest thing that had ever happened. We got rid of it. We'd sold it as a going concern and basically sold the company and everything that went along with it. Now I didn't have the work permit anymore, and we found that all of a sudden we've got 1 million baht extra, and I couldn't believe how lucky that was, and to me, it was God just telling me, you're meant to be in Thailand, you're meant to be with your wife. This is something showing me that things can go according to plan and things can work. Okay, I didn't have a work permit anymore or a business visa, but I was able to change over to a marriage visa, which was quite lucky for me to do that. At this point, we'd already had the village marriage. We'd already spent 2 days there because we were busy sorting things out in Pattaya. It was when all this was sold and everything settled down a bit, where we both breathed a sigh of relief. Okay, we can fight for another day. We went back up to Buriram, and the family graciously allowed us to live in their house for a bit, and they had a little, I wouldn't call it an outhouse as such, it was kind of a shack thing, or a concrete shack, with a tin roof that they allowed us to patch up the holes in, and put some air conditioning in, and buy a bit of furniture to live there, and we were living there, looking for the next step. It was then when I went to Laos with her to go and get the marriage visa, which was extended, and before long, we're living there, looking at new opportunities and new things to do in order to make money. But now, I just felt myself already as a restaurateur because of the restaurant we had. So from my experience of meeting that guy, that Italian guy, who had the Italian restaurant in Koh Samui, I thought that I could do that, and I want to do it, and I can succeed, and I will succeed, and I will make something work. And we had the money back, luckily, from the sale of that failure, that huge failure. I'm not sure what happened to that, though, and it's not my concern. Because of those feelings and the feeling that I was a restaurateur, though, we're looking around and thinking perhaps we can try again with a new restaurant, but we can do it in Buriram now, not in a village or anything like that. I wasn't going to do something in the village because I knew that the chance of making money of doing that was quite low, but we could potentially open up a restaurant in Buriram town. In the town, there was a small expat contingent, or there is a small expat contingent. You get the few tourists coming too, and it's an up-and-coming little town. It's a great town. You've got the scenic nature of the centre of the town around the water area. There are a couple of restaurants around there which are nice, and perhaps we can have our own, and we decided that we could look into it. At this point, I'd already bought a motorcycle that we needed to be able to get around, so we're travelling from the village to Buriram town every day on the motorcycle. It was only about 20 minutes away, and we're looking around, and all of a sudden one day, probably a couple of weeks after doing this, we were spending time in little different sections of the town. We saw this shophouse-style building, and it said, in Thai, I think it said, Kai, Chow, sell, rent. And we looked at it and looked at each other and thought perhaps this could be something that we could do, or a place that we could do something in together. We called them up, how much is it? And the first thing they said was 800,000 baht. What do you mean 800,000 baht? This was 800,000 for the actual building itself and the land it was on. Of course not something I could own, and the rent was just 3,000 baht a month. I don't know what it was, but it was something that screamed at me, if you bought it for 800,000, you're never going to have to pay rent again, and you can live upstairs and have the restaurant downstairs, and you don't need to make much money. And I don't know why I thought that was a better idea than renting it for 3,000 a month. Because 3,000, it's not a lot of money, but I didn't think that. I always thought, I don't want to put money into something, I don't want to make it nice and put good fixtures and fittings in and things like that, if I can't own it. You don't want to invest in someone else's building, and that was really what I thought, and I kept thinking about. After a short while, not long at all, we decided to actually buy this place, which was probably a very bad move. I mean, well, after what am I meant to say? It was. But we bought it. It belongs to her, and we spent another 200,000 kitting it out with basic stuff. We couldn't afford to do it as nice as we wanted, but that was about $1 million in that we'd put into it, and I would say I had my visa money, 400,000 baht as a marriage visa, and I wouldn't be able to have a work permit to do this, but that was fine, and I had about 300,000 baht left just to turn us over until we were generating a profit. At this point, we're really happy with each other, I feel, and I believe we're made for each other in a way, and life is moving according to plan. Things are going okay, and we were just living life, and we opened this place, found a few people to work for us. Of course, it was only going to be Thai style because it was mainly attracted to Thai people, and I said the expat contingent was small, but not necessarily in the area where expats live was this place. 6 months later, it was quite clear that we'd made an error yet again because we weren't making money. We were making just about enough to pay for the staff, and obviously she's getting 15,000 a month still, and that was, after 6 months. I'd spent that remaining 300,000. I only had my visa money left. I'm still clinging on to the hope that things are going to work out though, and we've got the place, we don't have a mortgage, we don't have rent to pay, all we need is 40,000 a month to live on. She's getting 15, so all I need to really make is about 25,000 more than this. That's why I kind of doubled down when the building next door became available for rent, and it was for sale. It was the same owner. They were selling the big row of them, but we rented that one for 3,000 a month and we opened up a little shop there, and I suppose that was the beginning of the failure mode, because it just hastened it. The failure was quicker, and it was progressing. It got to the point where I didn't have any of the visa money left, and my wife and I are both still happy with each other, and both, good with each other, but I suppose I hadn't told her the honest truth about exactly how much money I had. I'd always said it was close, but I never spelt it out. I never spelt it out directly how much we had. When I told her I've got about 200,000 baht left and that's it, that was like her moment of clarity, I think, or her moment to be who she really was, and I was quite shocked when she looked at me and said, "What do you mean?" I told you, I've always told you, we don't have much money and we need to make things work, and how lucky we were that we got 1 million baht for that place back, because I don't think she put two and two together and realised the severity of it until I actually spelled it out. Then I'm thinking, because at this point I'm not even thinking I need to go back home, I need to start again or anything like that, because as far as I was concerned, I lived in Thailand. Thailand was my new country, Thailand was home, and that's where I belonged, and that's where I had to be. What we ended up doing was completely giving up that place we rented, lost some money on that, and got to the point where she's starting to do the cooking at the place we have, and the serving and doing everything, and we're not paying any staff. We had to get rid of them all, and that was when we finally started to just cover enough money to live, and I'm starting to feel good, and this is going on for 3 months. Okay, my money's not going back up, but it's not going down either, and I think we've sort of cracked the code. Okay, we just don't have to have staff. She can do the cooking and the serving, and I'll be in the back doing the business side of things, and I don't mind washing dishes if I'm out of sight and nobody can see me, because I don't have a work permit, and I really believe that we had cracked the code here, and we're not making a lot, but we're making enough to live on. She's getting her 15, I'm getting enough to not have to worry about my money going down. The problem was, though, and I didn't catch on to this for a few months, she was really hating it, and I think she was starting to resent me because she didn't see herself as having to do that. She saw herself as being the boss and the owner, and whatever she kept thinking, I don't know. We need staff, she kept saying, and I kept saying if we have staff, we can't afford it. The money will go down. And the one day I'd woken up and she wasn't there, and I called her, and I'm staying at my family, she said. Well, what about the fact that we need to open the restaurant soon? I can't be bothered to do it today, she said. I'll come back tomorrow. And I'm just fretting, thinking, we need to make some money then. How are we going to do it? Then she's not back the following day. No, I stay with my family a little bit more. I don't know what to do, I thought. I don't know what to do at all. I don't know what to do about anything, and I'm telling her, I can't do this myself. I'm not Thai, I'm foreign. I can't work. I can't cook this kind of stuff. This is our business, and if we don't do this, it will be over and we can't do anything. She's just so matter-of-factory, as if she didn't care, with no care in the world, saying, I'll come back soon, but I'm still fretting because I can't open the restaurant. When she hadn't come back for a week, I went to the family's house myself and she was there, and I'm trying to talk to her, and she's saying, I don't know what to do. She's saying that. She's saying she doesn't know what to do. I don't understand. Maybe we should go and stay in Bangkok or something, she said, and I can get a job there. Why can't you work here, I said. I don't want to, and, well, her family seemed to be quite abrasive with me. I don't know why. At this point, of course, we're not making money, and I've only got about 200,000 baht, and now I don't have 200,000 baht because of this, and my visa renewal is coming up in 6 months' time, and there's all these awful things going on, and we had this place, and she said that we can just rent it out. How much can we rent it for? It's not enough money because it's about 3,000 baht, and it was like she was bringing the whole downfall on by herself, and it was really bad to think about, and I just couldn't understand it, and I tried, and I begged her to come back, and eventually she agreed. Okay, I'll come back, and I'll try, and we opened up a few days later. Probably lost 20,000 baht because of that. Again, I had to give her some money to come back, didn't I? We opened, and I'm trying my best to be happy with her and content and trying to be okay, but it's clear that she doesn't want to be doing this, and I don't know why. We're running a business, we've got a place that belongs to us, we don't have big bills to pay, but it was like she wanted that without doing anything. I mean, of course, I wanted that too, but I couldn't have that, and it was just a really bad place, and I'm starting to resent her for not just being okay with how things were going. Again, a few days later, I wake up, and she's not there, and I call her. Oh, I just went to see my friend in Bangkok. I don't know what to think. I was a deep sleeper, by the way, so she could get up and I wouldn't know. What do you mean you've gone to Bangkok? I go to see friend, I need break, I'll come back in a week, she said. I can remember just hanging on for a week thinking, I hope she comes back, I hope she comes back. But a week comes by and she hasn't come back. I went to see the family. Of course, she wasn't there, and I'm calling her, and she's not really answering, and she answered one time and said, no, I'll spend a bit longer with my friend, I come back soon. What do you mean? I said, we've got this place, we need to do the business, we need to make money. Of course, I'm spending money at that time as this because I can't work it out, and we had something that started to work finally, and now she was pushing me away and making it so that at this point, I'm going to run out of money completely. When she hadn't come back for yet another week later, at this point, she'd been gone for 2 weeks, I went down to Bangkok to look for her, and I asked her where she was, and she didn't say, she just said staying with a friend, and she wasn't letting up about anything. Now I'm paying for a hotel in Bangkok too, and it was awful, because money's going down, and I can't even go out and relax and have a few drinks because I don't have the money to pay for that, because I need to save up for what I've got, and trying to call her all the time, and eventually, probably a week after being in Bangkok, she answered properly, only it wasn't her. It was this guy speaking in English. She doesn't want to see you. Who are you? I'm her old boyfriend. What do you mean? Well, then it came out that she was with this guy that she'd been with before me, who came to Thailand every now and then, and she'd kept in touch with him. And it wasn't like they were boyfriend and girlfriend, or they were romantically involved, but it was like she'd confided in him somehow, or at least that's what she said. He said she doesn't like you. She said she doesn't want to be with you. And what do you mean she wants to be with you? What do you mean? He said, no, not really, and I don't know what it's all about. It was just so difficult. Maybe she wanted to be with him, but he said that wasn't the case, but probably it was the case. Probably it was. I don't know. I really don't know. And I'm saying I need to see her. She's my wife. If that's the case, I said, I need to get divorced, and I wasn't thinking to get divorced. I was just thinking of what I would need to say in order to be able to do anything, in order to be able to see her, just wondering, why was she doing this? I kept calling, and she's not answering again. That guy answers one time, and I asked her why she's doing this, and he says again, she doesn't like you anymore, or whatever. I'm just going through a really bad time. I said if she wants to give a problem for me, then I won't get divorced from her, so she can't do anything else. I want to sort it all out, and these are just things I'm thinking about off the top of my head, not knowing what I'm saying. I was really in a bad way. Because of that, I met up with her, though, a couple of days later, and she said, and I'm asking who this guy is, she said it's not a problem at all. I don't understand why you do that so bad to me. She just kept saying, why you're a bad man. You do bad to me, she said. Lose everything because of you, is what she was saying, not the other way round. I don't get it. It was, I've lost everything, she was saying, and still I didn't understand because she hadn't lost anything at all. All she didn't want to do was work properly, and she says that it's not her job to do. She was the boss, she said, and all these nonsense things she was saying. It was like she didn't want to be with me because she didn't want to work, and she wanted the staff, and, well, I told her we had to sell this place in Buriram and give me half the money. She said she can't sell because I can't go to Buriram, and it was just, I don't know what was going on. The first time we made something work that was actually working properly, it was actually making a bit of money. Okay, it wasn't a lot. The fact that she had to do the work meant that she didn't want to do it, and now she was making it very difficult for me. You have to bear in mind that my money is going down on a daily basis, probably 1,000 baht a day, probably a little bit more actually, and it got to the point where I had 100,000 baht left. I'm looking at plane tickets now thinking I can't afford that because I've already come to the conclusion that that's literally the only thing I can do. There's nothing that can keep me where I belong because I belonged in Thailand. Thailand was my lifetime. That was where I was meant to be. That was my country now. Well, it wasn't my country, but it felt like it was. And I suppose once you've committed to somewhere, that was when you're meant to be. So if something went wrong, it went wrong there, and if it got right there. But it's starting to be the writing on the wall, though, that that's not going to be the case, and I can't work it out. I keep calling her, though, because I'm begging her to stop doing what she's doing, so she agreed to meet up with me. But this time, when she met up, that guy came along, and I asked her, "Are you with her?" It was something like, I don't know, yes or no, and it was just very abrasive. And I told him that I didn't know if he wanted her or not, or something along those lines. And he said, if you will divorce her, she'll give me 100,000 baht. And I said no. The first thing I thought was no. I didn't even think, I don't want to stay with her anymore, and she doesn't want to stay with me. But I thought I won't divorce her and I'll make it difficult for her. I remember saying that to her exactly, like, because of you, everything's gone wrong for me. Then he said to me, well, I'll give you 250,000 if you can divorce her. I suppose I stopped for a second and thought about the situation and thought, well, okay, I don't have a choice. I was heartbroken, though, but what choice did I have? I needed some money back, and I agreed, and a few days later I'm divorced. But I've got 250,000 cash plus my 100,000, so 350,000, and that gave me a bit of time to myself to contemplate what I meant to do from there. I just didn't want to go home, though. That would have been admitting defeat. That would have been everything going wrong. I didn't want to do that. But what was I meant to do? I was living where I wanted to live, yet no ability to be able to stay there, because I tried my best, and when something started to work, my wife basically destroyed it. I'd been divorced twice now. I'm in my 50s, and I don't want to go back home and start again. And that was about $10,000 I had, 10,000 US, and I made a very hasty decision to fly to a neighbouring country, to Cambodia. I'd heard guys moving around there at the time and how it was up and coming, and I moved there permanently. Basically flew from Thailand there, liked it, flew back, went back to the Cambodian embassy in Bangkok, got a business visa that I could extend for $300. And I arrived in Cambodia around, I believe, 2011 with no money at all. But I rented the cheapest place I could find, and I started to think, what can I do? What am I meant to do? I just wanted to work something out to be able to live there, and I was able to live. At that moment, I was living on about $400 a month, so my $10,000 would last. And I ended up meeting a girl in Cambodia who just seemed to be on a whole other level of poverty than the girls in Thailand. Not that I'm saying that's a good thing, but she seemed to be more appreciative to me and happy with me and living on not much money. And I decided I wanted to have another go at business again. Why I thought that was a good idea, I don't know. The thing was, we opened up a little cafe in Siam Reap, very, very much of a nothingness, but it was dirt cheap rent, dirt cheap everything, and we opened it up. And by the grace of God, it allowed me to make enough money to sustain a very basic existence in Cambodia for a number of years. And I'm not progressing in life and things are not great, not making a lot of money, not really enjoying doing things like that we're doing, but I was existing. Then, in about 2015, I received a small inheritance, a very small inheritance, but it was enough where I could stop worrying, and I could live on about $700 a month for the rest of my life. And although I eventually managed to get married to that girl that I met in Cambodia, I'm with her today, but I'm in a very bad way and probably going to get divorced soon, because life hasn't really been fun. But I am living in Cambodia. I'm not living a great life, but it's enough to see me. Enough, because I got to the point where I was in Thailand and I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to start again. And the inheritance that I got did save me. And I'm having to admit that, and I'm happy to admit it. What happened to me in Thailand was just an example of what happens to guys who think they can do things that you wouldn't be able to do at home. What happened to me in Cambodia was basic luck that I was able to sustain myself until that inheritance came, because I wasn't expecting that inheritance. It wasn't expected at all. I'm an old man now, perhaps not old in the sense of what many people think old is, but I get by. Life is what it is. I don't know if I'll be with my wife much longer, and if I'm not, I'm not, and if I am, I am. I just say be careful in Thailand or anywhere, in fact, because you don't have anything to fall back on if things go wrong. It's not your country, as much as you might think that that's where you belong and that's where you need to be. You've already committed to it, therefore it's committed to you, but it doesn't work like that. I found a solution now which isn't perfect and hasn't been perfect and has been a marginal existence ever since, but it's something that I've come to terms with now, and there's no choice for me but to come to terms with it. I will be in this position until the day I die. I will update if there are any big revelations, or I won't. I don't know.